Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Chapter 3, Take 2. I apologize that the first version didn't have any sound, so hopefully you guys can hear this one. But I want to do Chapter 3 because I believe this is the most important chapter in the book. It talks about time and stress management. And by the way, speaking of which, I thank you all for getting your work done up to this point. It looks like everybody is pretty much caught up, and I appreciate that, and I know you guys will too by the end of the semester when you're not having to scramble to catch up or get things done. And you see your grades at a higher or normal level rather than having late grades. So thank you once again. But when it comes to time and stress management, or actually just about every single chapter in this book, I want you to pay attention to the first section that asks you some little questions, topic questions, to get you thinking while you read these chapters. Now this one brings up things like, is your car clean? Is your bed made? Is your desktop clean? Is your desktop of your computer organized? Your workspace clean, etc. Now we may think these are all little insignificant things, but think about it this way. If you go to work in the morning and you have to look for everything like your tools, say for instance you leave the day before and you just chuck that 3/8 wrench somewhere across your workbench or anywhere for that matter, and you're having to look for it the next day instead of starting your project right away, it's frustrating, it's stressful, it takes time out of your job while everybody else who organized is already getting ready and started for work. Also, for those of you who may give somebody a ride, is your car clean? Are you having to run out to your car ahead of them so you can clean up the mess so they don't see it? So you can see how some of these little things can cause stress or waste time, etc. So therefore, it may seem insignificant on making our bed, but think about it this way. If you get up in the morning and you make your bed, what does that do for you? Now, some of my students will always say that it gets you off on the right foot, it makes you look organized, it makes you look this way, and it makes you just feel good and like you're starting your day off right. I also want you to think about the end of your day. Let's say you've had a very hard day at work, and you're one of those hurricane sleepers that turns your sheets and your blankets into a pretzel or just a giant mess, and you come home and just before you go to bed you have to actually make your bed just to get back in and mess it up again. That is kind of an ugly cycle and kind of frustrating, right? So think about if you make your bed in the morning, you don't have to do that. You can just come home from work, slide right into bed, turn on your Netflix and go to sleep and relax. So there's a lot of purposes to that. Like for instance, at nighttime, can you save time in the morning? I know some of you, my morning students, are always running into class late because, I had to get ready, traffic, parking, etc. It took me a little extra time to get ready. I know for me, a lot of times when I have to be at places early in the morning, I'll get my clothes out the night before. It takes me a minute or two. I can actually do it in the light because everybody's awake. I put them out there in the hallway or the living room, and I get dressed without hopefully waking anybody up or having to turn on the flashlight on my phone to find which clothes I'm going to wear. It also saves me a few minutes in the morning where I can actually relax and eat my breakfast and get things done. So as you can see, little things that we do to organize ourselves can take some time and some stress out of our lives. Well, what is stress? Well, the definition of stress is any event or stimulus in the environment that affects us in one way or another, usually mentally or physically, right? And a lot of times when we think of stress, we think of bad effects like being tired, being depressed, being anxious, having an upset stomach, all the different things. And these are what we call negative effects of stress. But the book also mentions that stress can be positive. And we don't think of it that way. But do think about it this way. What happens if, say, for instance, you didn't stress out about getting a decent grade? Then you're not going to get your work on time. You're not going to care. Stress actually makes us perform, and in some cases keeps us alive. If you didn't stress out about getting hit by a car, then you would just run out in front of a car and get hit, right? So stress can keep us safe. It can make us perform. It can make us do a good job. It can also give us ulcers, headaches, and many sleepless nights. So this book, and especially this chapter, talks a lot about managing stress, recognizing stress in our lives. Okay, so if you were trapped in a room and it only had one little window and a big hole in the ceiling, and you were given a spoon, and there's no way out, and all of a sudden a bunch of poop started falling through that ceiling and a pile on the floor, what are you going to do? Some people would start to complain about it. They would pull out their phone and take a picture of it and state that their life is over with because their poop is piling up and do nothing about it. Some people will sit there and try to figure out how they can get all the poop out of the room in one big pile, and they'll get frustrated. Smart people, people who manage stress and manage time, will actually get that spoon and start throwing the poop out the window one scoop at a time, right? But you can never clean up your pile unless you get started somewhere. So we're going to talk a lot about this semester when it comes to time and stress management. And a lot of everything is about how you see things and how you handle things and how you manage yourself. So I really want you to think about that this semester. The quote that I put below the video in this unit, this exercise, actually states that life is 10% what happens and 90% how you deal with it. So I want you guys to think about that this semester. A lot of times our society has that reversed. We believe that everything has control over us, that when bad things happen, we have no control over it. And that is true to a point, right? We can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond to it and how we see it. So, for instance, if you're walking down the sidewalk and you step in a pile of poop, I know I'm using poop twice in the same lecture, but that's the fact. If you step in a pile of poop on the sidewalk, you have a choice. You can sit there and scream and yell that, oh my gosh, how come somebody let their dog poop on the sidewalk? Now my shoes are ruined, my day's ruined, I'm angry, I'm bitter, and the rest of my day is going to be horrible. And you take a picture of it and you post it on your Facebook and Instagram and tell everybody how horrible things are. Or the other choice being that you simply walk over to the nearest section of grass, you wipe it off, you call it fertilizer, and you move on. That is a choice we have. There is a difference in seeing that we control our environment and how we react to it and what happens versus our environment controlling us. And that is a very big difference in how we can manage stress positively to where it doesn't control us and ruin or negatively impact our lives any more than it has to. Now, we can't avoid every event, but we can control how we react to it. So I want you guys to think about that as you read through this chapter. And I want you to think about some stressors that are going on in your life, how they're affecting you physically, how they're affecting you mentally, and ways that you can handle it. The book talks about recognizing stress, and it talks about cures. Everything from hobbies to getting things done on time, to going and talking to somebody and, like, say, for instance, therapy or a pastor or a priest, to exercise, and sometimes even medications if necessary. But whatever we have to do to manage our stress and positively deal with it so we can move on and carry on with our lives is a very important factor in our lives. And if we can't do those things, then we can't succeed in the rest of the book. So as we go chapter by chapter, we're going to talk a lot about how these things can affect you professionally, how they affect you personally, and how you balance the two to become a better professional and look better in the eyes of your employer and do a good job. Thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you guys through the rest of the semester. And if you have any comments, questions, please post those in the discussion, as I'd like to see a response from every student. It'll be worth 10 points. Same with every other discussion that I open up for the rest of the semester. Thank you.